and we are setting up Mastodon today. Unfortunately, JT isn't able to join me today because he is under the weather, but that doesn't mean the show can't go on. So what I hope to do today by the end of this stream is have a complete setup of a Mastodon server, and we will connect it to Storj. So the first thing I want to do is go to the Mastodon. Docs. And I'm going to select running your own server. And it has a little bit of background information here, but I'm going to quickly scroll down. I'm going to set this up directly on my server, but there's other options such as a hosted, or you can have a one-click setup on DigitalOcean. So on this preparing my machine, let's do that. So I am going to use Google Cloud to host my server. You can obviously use any variety of places such as Hetzner or AWS. And then once I'm in here, I'm going to navigate to a virtual machine. We're going to select create an instance. So let's go ahead and give it a name. And I'm going to beef this one up just a little bit more, just so that it goes a little bit faster. There are some intensive things that need to be installed, but once it's installed, you could likely scale this back down to not require so much and save a little on the cost there. But for the purposes of this walkthrough, that is completely fine what I've done there. I will want to change this over to Ubuntu. And just like the title said, let's do this on 2204. Okay. And let's give it a little bit of extra space here. And can I add my SSH key here? Don't think so. So we'll go ahead and create this machine. And once that's created, I want to add my SSH key. And that typically is the one with .pub. I'll just copy that whole thing. And then I will select my server. Sorry, I was closing Slack there. And then you'll select the edit button. Scroll down to SSH keys, add this. I want my username to be Dan, not Dan W, so I'm going to erase that W there. Select save. And then hit back. I believe 3 times. I don't know why I have to hit back so much, but I now have my server here. And I'm going to go ahead and copy that IP, and let's SSH into it. All right, so now I have my Ubuntu server. Let's go back to the guide. they want to have us run apt update. And also apt upgrade. These other things here are good for your live instance. They're pretty straightforward, installing 2 packages. I'm going to skip that for now. We can come back to that later if we have some time, but I am then going to jump to this next install from source. And I'll make this a little bit bigger. All right, so it's just asking if I want to restart some services. That's fine with me. Okay. And now let's get through these instructions. So the first thing it says is you may want to run the commands as root, and you can switch to sudo. I'm just going to prefix everything with sudo. Well, let's try it. And we'll just run through these really quickly. Install node. And installing Postgres here, you'll notice it does this lsb release -cs. I actually wanted to also install tmux because I want to do multiple things at the same time. For instance, run this command here. So you'll notice that this will say jammy, which is the Ubuntu name of this release. Let's go ahead and get Postgres installed, and then apt update once again. And then this huge install command. So while that installs, so Mastodon is a decentralized Twitter, you could say. And like in the same manner, storage is a decentralized object storage. So when you post images or videos to a server, it can go directly on the hard drive, but it's usually hard to scale that hard drive. So what most platforms opt into is storing that in an object storage service, and the most popular one is AWS S3, which we are compatible with. But in the same way, storage is a decentralized object storage with S3 API compatibility. So what you'll be seeing in this video is later on is we will connect storage to this decentralized object storage where we have 17,000 nodes across the globe where you can, when your file is updated, it will be distributed globally across all of those. And let's go ahead and keep this going. I know once we start installing Ruby, it will likely take a while. This is just the name information of the Mastodon user, which will be running the code. We're now going to switch to that new user we just created, and you'll notice that I have Mastodon at Mastodon 1. Mastodon 1 here is the name of my server. and they want me to install RubyEnv or RBEnv, and that is the simpler way to install different versions of Ruby. There are a number of ways you can do it. I've used chruby or chruby, but let's just go ahead and use what they've specified here. Once that starts going, yep, this is the command that will take a little while. So as that is being installed, let's see if there's anything else we can do in parallel. I'll split my terminal here. So we can run this pgtune, which is always good. I think we're good with the defaults for this demo. And then, so let's go ahead and connect to the database and create a Mastodon user. And you can set up a password for this database user, but I won't for now. And I think we're gonna quickly run into steps that we can't do without Ruby, but we can clone the code, and there was a patch from our chief architect JT on how to easily set up Storj with their walkthrough. So as Ruby is installing, let's see if we can get that. I'm not sure what I assume was getting the stable release. So let's just say this is the stable. So create a branch there. Okay. All right, so we don't have Ruby yet, so we can't do bundles, but what I wanted to do was cherry pick a patch that we have in the open, trying to get installed or merged into Mastodon repo. So what it does is it basically will just prompt us through how to set up Storj. And so I want to download this pull request. What I'm going to do is type fetch origin pull, and then I'll need the number here. And then I will want the head, and I'll give this a branch name, which will be Storj. Okay. So you should be able to see the Storj branch. Let's go ahead and check out that. And then just do a git log. We have 2 commits here that we want to cherry pick. So I'm going to cherry pick the top one. Go back to that branch we were on. And then git cherry pick. Okay. It says we have some conflicts. So let's go ahead and resolve those. And eventually this will just be merged into the repo. So when that happens, you can go ahead and skip this step. But until then, I think it is a good, helpful tool here. And then I just wanted to make sure that Storj DCS is included in the prompt. It looks like lot of these things are good. So that looks good to me. So we can go ahead and add that and do cherry pick. Continue. Oh, yep, it wants me to add my username, so I am danw at storj.io, and my name is Dan. All right, let's run that again. And we'll go ahead and save that. So now you'll notice we have that commit here. So next we will see if Ruby is done. We're still installing Ruby. So what we should do next is get our storage account. So the way we do that is we can go to storj.io and you can get 150 gigabytes for free. And I'll do that right now. So I'll just sign in with my information. Whoops. Go ahead and save that, and I'll need to confirm this email. So go ahead and confirm it there. And I'm going to actually want to use the CLI in this case. So let's give this a name like Mastodon. And all permissions here is fine. Then I'm going to hit next and make sure I select Linux. And this will be to install the CLI tool. So we'll back up one directory, download this binary called uplink. So actually, I'm still in the Mastodon user. I want to do this. Oh, our Ruby is done. So we will pause uplink. We will come back to that. We'll pause that for now. We haven't really gotten that far into it, so that it was a good time for Ruby to finish. Let's go ahead and do these next steps. Did it not have us? I think I may have missed something. Installing bundle. There we go. Okay, so gem command exists in these Ruby versions. That seems like what I want. So perhaps I just need to run this. And then I can do that. Okay. Then back down to here. Can run these. And this will get the number of processors, which we should have 4. Yep. So we'll run that. Could not locate gem file. So let's go ahead. I think what I did is I forgot to reload my environment. Nope, that wasn't it. So let's see what I may have missed here. Did that. Just make sure. Okay, so can't locate a gem file. I see. I should just read the error. We need to go into the live directory first, and then we can run bundle install. But let's make sure that we ran these in this directory. Great. So while that goes, let's go back to installing uplink. So I will go ahead and download this binary. Need to install unzip. And then we should be able to unzip. Then we'll want to install that in our user bin. So now we should have uplink. And this is the CLI tool to interact with Storj DCS. And it allows you to talk directly to the storage nodes and upload, download, make buckets. And you see there's a variety of commands here. We're going to run the setup here command shortly, and then we'll make a bucket. But the other things are very similar to AWS CLI that you may have used in the past. So let's go ahead and go back one step so that we have those access things. Let's leave default as a name, and this is a secret key here, so I will revoke it after this stream. And then this passphrase is how Storj will end-to-end encrypt your data so that not even Storj can read it. And then we will save that client side so that when you use uplink, that end-to-end encryption happens. I'm going to generate credentials later, so I'm going to say no for now. And then I should be able to say uplink ls, which I don't have any buckets. So let's go ahead and make one. So uplink make bucket. Let's call it Mastodon. Actually, I believe later in the tutorial it has us make one. So let's leave that for now. Okay. Make sure we still have that. Yep. So we've now gotten our gems installed. Let's go ahead and do our yarn install to get all those dependencies. And then this is the step where we'll want to create a bucket. So yeah, a lot of this stuff is just in that guide, walking through it just for completeness here. But we are honestly pretty close to setting up our server. There's just probably 30% of the 30% of the guide is left to be done. So let's go ahead and run this setup. And so you'll see that it will allow me to, let's see, mastodon.danwilloughby.dev is my domain name. And I want it to be, no, I don't. Do you want to enable single user mode? No, I don't. I'm not using Docker. That is fine. That was the user I created earlier and we had no password. Great, works. Redis was installed with that huge apt command. So that was great. And then I do want to store uploaded files on the cloud. And you'll notice that it has a Storj DCS option. That's that cherry pick I performed while Ruby was being installed. So we'll go ahead and select that. We'll want to use the default endpoint. And then it wants us to create a bucket. I think this is a great name. So we'll pause that for a second. And we'll go to uplink and we will make a bucket called that, but you need to remember to prefix it with SJ. Great. So let's go back to this screen and yep, we'll just use the default there. And now it wants me to run this command to get some access credentials. So I'm going to copy up until it says that placeholder bucket. And we'll come over here, paste that in. Then I will actually want to put that name of the bucket I have there. So go ahead and hit enter. And now we have these credentials. So these are also secret. The access key isn't secret, but the, whoa, it was not what I expected. Okay. And then it needs the secret key. So I'm just going to do a little bit of tmuxing to be able to get this. And that's the secret. So I will revoke that after the stream as well. Now we need a way to share these files. So Storj's public buckets are a little bit different from like the standard AWS. And the way that we allow files to be shared is through our link sharing service. And what it does is allow finer grain control over what files you're sharing. So the way that we enable a public bucket is by running this command, which will generate a share. And then the way this -- register is going to generate a link sharing key. It'll look very similar to what we see here above, but it's important to use this second key because you notice we've added some restrictions here, such as disallowing list, and that is a good way to ensure that people can't just find your public bucket and list everything in it, and they instead will need a URL to access it directly. And then the final thing is that same bucket we just made. And then I will want to put this access key over here. That's the link sharing access key. And that link sharing access is basically generating a domain name where we can share these files. So I'm going to say no here. And do I want to send emails from localhost? No, I'm not going to set up Mailgun for emails. So I'll just have all the defaults here. And this is OpenSSL. Oh, this is still SMTP. I'm just going to select defaults. I'm actually not going to set up email at this point. And then we will write that. Yep, and we want to prepare the database. So that will run migrations. And yep, we want to compile our assets. So this will take just a moment, but essentially we were able to set up storage on Mastodon through those few steps. Like I said earlier, it's S3 compatible, so a lot of the things are just putting the options in the right spot, and it will just work. Let's explore a little bit more on the UI here. So we've finished installing uplink, but this will walk you through how to upload a file, just a little bit more information on how to use uplink. But in the dashboard, we have your project stats, so how much storage you'll be using, how much bandwidth, and you'll notice that I have a free account, which is 150 gigabytes free, but you can easily upgrade, add a credit card, and get all of these additional benefits. And it is a very low price of $4 per terabyte and bandwidth at $7 per terabyte. On Amazon, you'll easily pay between $23 to $40 on storage, and your bandwidth will be between 70 to 90 per terabyte on AWS, depending on what you use. So a great option to save on costs, but also, and we'll get this here in a moment, is storage is multi-region by default. So when a file is uploaded, it's broken into pieces, and it will be approximately 80 of those pieces will be scattered across the globe, and each of those storage node operators are independent. And so just like if you put your data in like a single data center, if like a tornado hits that data center, it'll be completely wiped out along with your data. So to get multiple redundancy in the traditional case, you would have to pay for an additional region. So like if you were storing on Backblaze, you would put it in New York, and then you would pay for additional copy to be stored in like the West Coast in California. Storage is different, however, but because by default you get that multi-region redundancy by default. Those pieces will be in Oregon, New York, maybe California, or the Midwest, but also be stored in Europe, so that you can have that multiple region redundancy. So if, say, just a few storage nodes go down, you'll be able to have that peace of mind that your data is safe, because we only need about a third of those pieces to reconstruct the file. And we actually monitor how many pieces are in the network. So say if it goes down to like 70 or 60, we will have our infrastructure go out and repair those pieces and put it back out into the network so that it is at a healthy 80. All right, so looks like those assets are compiled. Let's go ahead and create an admin user. Yeah, that sounds great. Username is admin. Go ahead and put my email here. And here's my secret password that I'm going to save. Whoops. Right here. So let's go back to the instructions. Wants me to go back to root. We now need to set up Nginx, so we'll do that now. We're copying some basic config in there, and we'll go ahead and reload that. Last time I did it, it failed, and I'll walk you through what happened here. So if I go ahead and edit that file, it's complaining that we have this SSL service set up, but there is no cert. So what I'm going to do for now is just comment that out so that our server can start. So if I reload that, now I don't get this error I was seeing. And I will want to now run certbot. But before I do, I need to make sure I've set up my DNS connection. So I'm going to go to Google Domains here and manage my domain names. I want to copy this IP address here. And what I called this was Mastodon. And it's an A record because it's a simple IPv4 address. And I will hit save there. Once that is done, I can now go back to that certbot command. And I will type mastodon.danwilloughby.dev. This will do the needed steps to get an SSL or a TLS cert. Always good to read the terms. And I don't want to share my email address for now. All right, so now that is successfully deployed. Let's go back into that Mastodon Nginx config. And we'll uncomment this large piece. Oh, shoot. You know what I didn't do? Is I didn't change the server name, so it may have done something completely different from what I was expecting. So let's just do that again. Oh, it deployed it to my default. Okay, so that's fine. What I can do is grab out this stuff that it's set here. So I'm going to, ideally I would have set that server name in advance. So I wouldn't have to do this, but we didn't. So I want to have that server name over here. And whoops. Don't know what happened there. Okay. Sites available default. And then I want to copy in those cert locations. And we should be good. Other things I will need to do is set this to that same server name. And then we'll have to remove the default. So what I can do is just remove that symlink to sites enabled, which will then get rid of that site so that we don't have a name conflict in the Nginx config. All right, so if let's go ahead and finish this out. We need to run a couple services with systemd. So I'll do that now. And you can see that that copied in three services: Sidekick, the streaming service, and the web service. The web service is going to run our Rails app. Sidekick is a job queue, and I don't know what the streaming service does. We can go ahead and see. Looks like it is running Node, so some Node service, probably to run live streams, is my guess. So now that we've copied those in, let's go ahead and edit those. So the first one, it wants to make sure that if, say we put this in my home directory, we would want to change that, but I followed the instructions like they suggested, so we're good there. So this one, same thing, no changes needed. And lastly, nothing needed there. So we can go ahead and reload systemd and enable those three services. All right, so now it should be up and running. Mastodon.dan will it be .dev says the site cannot be reached. So let's run certbot one more time, just to be sure. Attempt to reinstall. Okay, and then let's check that out to make sure it didn't do anything funny. Looks like it's probably good. Okay. DNS probes, let's double check. I've set this record correctly. Mastodon, right there. Oh, there we go. Just needed a few minutes. All right, so the thing you'll notice is we'll see there's all of these errors, which is kind of confusing. But what's happening here is there isn't the right permissions in that directory. So that if you look at the network tab, it's getting a 404, so it can't find, Nginx can't find these files to serve them. And so the solution that they suggest is to chmod the home directory. So we'll go ahead and do that with that execute permission, and that will allow Nginx to list those files, is how I understand it. And there we go. So I have my Mastodon server. Let's see if it will be hosted on Storj. So I will go get my one-time password. I believe there's an extra space there. Whoops. There we go. And great. It's looking good. Let's go ahead and attach an image. Why not? This one looks great. Testing 1, 2, 3. Publish. Okay, and then we'll check this, and yes, we can see that this is hosted on Storj. And then just for curiosity's sake, let's go ahead and look at this bucket. And so important thing here is if you want to view your files, and because of that end-to-end encryption, we need to type the exact same passphrase that we entered when we set up the uplink client. And so I'm going to do that here. And now you can see that there is these files that were created by Mastodon. Here's the original. I'm going to look at this. You can see from this little diagram here, it's probably too small to see, but there's 80 pieces in the network. And what we've done is traced the rough location of where those IP addresses came from. And you can see that it is scattered mostly in Europe, but also in the United States. So there you have it. We have our Mastodon server set up, connected to Storj DCS. And yeah, glad you could all come to the stream today. We've also documented how to do this on docs.storj.io. So if you go to this DCS tab at the top and down to how-to guides, we have a decentralized social media guide section. And what I walked through here is some of those steps. So you'll notice the make bucket, this uplink share command, and then this link sharing key that we generated as well. And what it looks like in the config is basically these options. And let's maybe just glance. Let's just glance at that live directory. Typically, you don't want to show this file on a live stream because it will have like your secret server key. But this server's being shut down after this, so it's fine. Here you see the configuration that we set up. Essentially, we want to enable S3, the region. Here we've put global because Storj is across the globe, multi-region by default. That endpoint is there. You'll get the host name, and then the bucket name, and then the access key, secret, and then the way that we make those files public is through this S3 alias host. So you'll see that generated this URL, and that is the link sharing access key that we generated from uplink, and then the bucket name there. So any files in this bucket can be accessed via this URL and the name of the file. And so if we go back here, we can see if we inspect the URL here, it'll have all of those 109.547.256, right? And that is matched here, 109.547.256. And I believe it is probably using some of these smaller versions, so it downsamples the images. So that is all I had here today for you. Glad you could make it out to the stream. Feel free to reach out for help on our forum.storj.io. And we're happy to help there. You can also reach me personally at danw@storj.io. But thank you for tuning in today, and hopefully this helps you get your Mastodon server set up. So thanks. We'll see ya.